we all dread those boring presentations that suck the living life force right out of us. Like Jabba the Hutt just came with a giant straw and said, "This sucks."
There goes your oxygen.
I know. And it's a waste of time. And it's actually being the person dishing out these baggies of boredom and being the time thief. It sucks. And so we've got someone who's going to help us not be the person that sucks up all the life force in the world. We have public speaking, I can't even speak, public speaking coach Lisa Braithwaite here on Big Blend Radio's Champagne Sunday show today to talk about her fun, and I mean fun and informative book. It's called Presenting for Humans, not Jabba the Hutt. No, I'm kidding. It's Presenting for Humans, Insights for Speakers on Ditching Perfection and Creating Connection. And if you're looking to make a major impact on audiences and offer them a transformative educational experience that truly connects, this book is the one to go and get. Go to presentingforhumans.com, or you can go to Lisa's website. It's Coach Lisa B, and it's just the letter B. So CoachLisaB.com. Of course, it's on Amazon and all those great places. But Lisa, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're glad you're here. First thing, can we have champagne while we're presenting? Uh-oh. We're going to get a no.
How about if you're giving a toast, you can always have champagne while you're giving a toast.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah,
I think for a lot of people, having too much alcohol before they speak might be a mistake. But I would not, I frequently speak at events where there might be some wine and cheese beforehand. I'll have a little bit of wine. Like everyone else, wine helps to loosen me up a little, but I'm not going to go crazy because I don't want to get on stage and be drunk,
Yeah. Well, it can be entertaining at that point. But,
that's true.
You talk about the toasting, and it brings me to the first thing is that basically everyone, I would say at least 90% of us, at some point in our life have to stand up and speak to a group of people, even if it's 5 people. I'm a loudmouth, but I'm actually quite shy. And as a musician, I was a lead singer and had to get out there in the front and actually talk to the audience, and it was the worst thing ever. And then go into a business meeting or just one of those networking events, and you have to stand up and say, "My name is Lisa, and I'm from Big Blend Radio, and I'm too shy to talk to you, and I have sweaty palms, and I can't even pick up my coffee cup without shaking." So a lot of us go into all kinds of things, or it could be you have to, do the eulogy for your great aunt or something. Yep. We all have to speak at some point.
Yeah, and you make a good point about, you mentioned that you're shy. And I am also shy. There are a lot. So I have a lot of clients come to me and say, "Oh, I'm an introvert, so this is why I'm not good at speaking," or "I'm shy, and this is why." And I say, "Hey, join the club." Many of us who get on stage are not. We don't naturally enjoy being in groups or those networking scenarios where you have to walk up to strangers and introduce yourself. I hate that. I'm a lot like other people, but I'm an outgoing introvert.
Yeah.
And so I'm talkative like you. I'm a big mouth, and I like making people laugh, and I like entertaining people, and I was a theater major and all of that. However, it's still nerve-wracking for me to walk into a group of strangers like it is for a lot of people. And a lot of speakers, I would say, the vast majority of speakers, and we're talking about high-paid professional speakers and people who do this all the time, still get nervous before they go on stage. And it's a good thing because it means that they care. It means that they want to do a good job. It means they have high expectations of themselves. So being nervous before you speak is not only normal, it's kind of desirable.
Mm-hmm. I think you're really right. We've gone to enough presentations to know, and I'm not going to say anything against Toastmasters. I'm just going to observe that some people who use the Toastmaster kind of thing as their forefront have kind of a chip on their shoulder, like I'm from Toastmasters, so I'm great. And they kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I find a disconnect because they aren't nervous. And they tend to be really boring.
It's this polished, well-canned speech.
Yeah, it's like
that's it.
Without any personality. Let me put it, they lack the personality because maybe they've said it so many times they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it has nothing to do with Toastmasters, but they always say that's where they learn to speak. And I've come away with the idea that that's the last place to go if you want to learn to speak in front of a crowd, which is probably not true. But
I'll just say, and I'm not a Toastmaster, and I've seen some really stagey, really canned, really, really to me horrible presentations come out of Toastmasters. But I've seen that everywhere.
I'm alone then.
So, and all I'm going to say is I'm not a Toastmaster, so I don't do that whole practice every facial expression and every gesture, and I think that is the problem that a lot of people get into. It's almost about being over rehearsed when you are so, as you said, overly polished, overly canned, overly rehearsed to the point where you're not making a human connection, which is what my book is all about. That if you're not making a connection with your audience, if you're not engaging them emotionally, if you're not activating their emotions in some way, then it doesn't matter how perfect your gestures are or your facial expressions or that you remembered every single word that you wanted to say. It's not about being perfect. So thank you for the lovely segue into what my book is about.
Well, I love that part too, because you build on it and you really, public speaking, to me, you're replacing fear with information and fun. And we also have that nervousness, that's exciting to have. It's that exciting thing. I look at it as it's like being a musician, and I think it's just as both being musicians, Nancy and I, and then also doing so many interviews with musicians, there's this balance of knowing the song, knowing the chords you need to have, and really good music is when the band allows this jamming dynamic. Like you can, now we're going to jam and go beyond the sheet music. But you have to know your song to be able to do it. So it's like walking this little tightrope, Stevie Ray Vaughan reference, that you're able to do, and it's that balance of knowing your stuff, but being able to be yourself and being able to read the audience. And you talk a lot in your book about actually knowing your audience before you walk in, whatever you're talking about, actually knowing what their ups and downs are, what they're dealing with, and doing some research beforehand.
Right. In terms of being able to allow yourself to be flexible and spontaneous and completely in the moment with your audience and completely present with your audience, you have to be incredibly well prepared. So the music analogy is great because that really explains it well. You have to know your stuff. You have to know who you're speaking to, who's in the audience, what do they need, what do they want and care about, how are you going to engage them in a way that feels relevant to them and practical and useful, and how are you going to bring them into your world and create a great experience. And in order to do that, you have to be really well prepared, and then you have to allow yourself to be in the moment, and then you have to let go of all the stuff going on in your head. Am I funny enough? Am I smart enough? Am I going to forget something? Am I impressing people? All these things that go on in our head while we're speaking that keep us from being present and in the moment. We have to let that go and just trust that we've done everything we can do and that we're ready and that we're going to nail it. It's a mindset piece. It's a mindset piece.
I think when you're about to make a presentation, you can easily get caught up in how good am I going to be, and that takes the focus off of your passion to help the audience in some way, because that's why you're there, to help the audience in some manner. And if you start thinking about yourself, then you're not thinking about the audience, and I think that's when you get into trouble. But it's so hard to not think about yourself when you're going to put yourself out there on that tightrope.
Oh, absolutely. And so many people think that they have to, there's so many misconceptions that people take into speaking engagements with them. One of them is, I have to be the smartest person in the room. Right. I have to be able to answer everybody's questions. People can't have any challenges or any disagreement with me, so I have to be perfect and know everything. And when you go in there with that kind of attitude, I have to be the smartest and the funniest and the most witty, and then you make it all about yourself, then these are the people that you see who are, reading 1,000 words in teeny tiny font off of a PowerPoint because they're so afraid of not saying everything they need to say, and they pack too much information into the presentation, and they don't give the audience a chance to breathe or think or process. And they don't engage with the audience, which is another way that your audience processes your information, and that's by thinking it through themselves in another way, whether it's an activity you give them or you ask them some questions and ask them to respond back, or there are a million engagement activities, but you can't just you're not filling an empty vessel. You're not walking into a room and everybody in the room knows nothing about your topic, and you're just going to pour all of your wisdom and all of your information into them. That's not how it works. But when we think of a presentation that way, we do create this barrier between us and the audience. We overwhelm them, we bore them, we don't bring anything personal or we don't bring our own personality into it, and it's all because you're thinking of yourself. It's all because you're all in your head rather than thinking, how can I bring the audience the best value? How can I bring them some sort of transformation? How can I get them to take action, right? Everything you do, as you said, is all about them. Ultimately what they're going to take away and what they can go and do and use from what you're bringing them.
And, that's what, when we do our tourism seminars, we as Nancy and I travel, I know we've touched on this before the show, we go into communities and talk about responsible tourism, sustainable tourism that benefits a community, and the community benefiting, the tourism base. And, there's a lot of dialogue that has to happen within the community, within the business, within the actual communities, the schools, the residents, the homeowners, to make that balance happen. So we go in and talk about having excellence in tourism. And as we travel, we have a pink sock monkey that was given to me on my birthday, Priscilla. She was the queen of the desert. Now she's the queen of the road, and she's a diva. But she goes around as a mascot. But it is to remind people of having fun. And when we got into the tourism seminar thing, it happened just because a community that we were in went through a wildfire, a significant one, and right after that, a government shutdown in their national park area, and some of the smaller communities were really having a hard time with it. And so we went in to speak because we have, and I know you've been through wildfires. We've been through
I was going to say, that sounds like my community.
I know. Yeah. I know you were supposed to be on last year with us, and unfortunately you experienced the wildfires being in Southern California, which is how we ended up in the desert. But anyway, we know about the comeback of a community going through this, and so they were like, "Will you stand up and speak?" And we're like, uh-oh. and we literally were up until like 3 a.m, had to be there first thing in the morning to get it there and do this. But we took Priscilla and we played games with people because they needed to shake the drama and get into the zone of tourism. Travel is supposed to be fun. Nancy created this tourism game and with people speaking and doing things. And then we had moments where, okay, now we speak and do this, and then open it up to questions. And it was a very interesting, it became a town hall, and
really
we should have brought the politicians in. But there was that balance, and I think that if we didn't have that feedback, and what we have found through our seminars is that we should just go in and just say, okay, ask questions, because that's where we were able to really identify the source of the problems in the communities and
Much
where
easier.
far quicker, and be able to give them answers that they could take away was by opening the door to communication where, I remember, some old school teachings that I had about standing up and speaking was don't let people talk because they're going to derail what you're saying.
Oh, gosh.
There's
Terrible.
truth to that. Like we modified what we presented. We learned not to present certain things because you could get sidetracked real fast, and it steers you away from your main focus. So there is some truth to it, but we found it way more fun for everybody to let the audience have some time to speak. You just have to manage it.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to manage it. Again, this is one of the reasons why speakers need to get a lot of practice. Because if you speak once a year or less, and then you get up and you try to manage an audience, you're going to be rusty, to say the least. And managing an audience is a big part of being a speaker. Again, it's not just you standing up there and lecturing for an hour. I mean, you can do that, and many people do, but it's not terribly effective if you're trying to teach or train. So I come from a background of education, academia. I have a master's in education, and I come from a background of education and training. So for me, I tend to spend 2 or 3 days with people a lot of the time. So I'm not a keynoter who goes in and gives a 45-minute super inspiring, entertaining speech and nobody talks and they walk off and it's this, wow, we're all so inspired. This was amazing. I actually have to teach concepts and train people on things. And so there's a lot more that I have to do to keep people engaged with me and keep their attention over the course of a day or a day and a half or whatever it is. And so yes, letting the audience talk and let the audience share, to me, is a huge part of presenting because everybody has a lifetime of knowledge and experience and skills. And I'm not the person in the room who has all the answers. There are many people in the room who have given presentations and can actually give great advice or suggestions, not only to the other people in the room, but I also learn from my audiences. So to allow your audience to talk, also for me anyway, and I don't know, Lisa, you're another big mouth like me, and I think it was Lisa who said that, because I'm not sure which one is Lisa and Nancy when I hear your voices, but
there's a test after this.
Is that true for both of you?
Yes, we're both big mouths.
I'm just the quieter one.
I learn as I process. I like to talk things through out loud. And so that also oftentimes will help your audience learn about your topic when they can discuss it with somebody next to them or in a group. So, but also you have to be prepared. So I ask my clients, especially the ones who know there might be some controversy or disagreement in the room, or people who they might expect to challenge them. This is another aspect of preparation, but how can you anticipate? How can you anticipate the objections of your audience? What are people going to disagree with? What things are you going to say where the audience is going to say, well, we've already tried that and it's poor.
I've heard that.
Right, that one always comes up. Oh, I tried that, it didn't work. I get that from my clients too. So certainly there are a lot of ways your audience can get sidetracked and you can get sidetracked, but if you anticipate their objections, if you anticipate even the positive questions, then you can somewhat prepare for that. And then I have a really popular blog post called 5 Ways to Say I Don't Know. And my clients love this article because sometimes you get to a point in the presentation or in the Q&A where you literally don't have an answer. That happens all the time. And again, so many people are concerned about being perfect and all of this that they freak out about the Q&A. Well, what if they ask me something I don't know? Well, gosh, doesn't it happen every day in everybody's life? Like, we just don't know everything. So there are a lot of ways to say I don't know, or to deflect a comment or a question to have somebody come speak to you afterwards or to say, give me your card and I'll email you with some resources, or, hey, there's this really brilliant expert in the room. I bet they could answer that question. So again,
nice.
it's preparation. Oh, my gosh. I used to teach, so I started my own nonprofit 20-something years ago that doesn't exist anymore, but it was a nonprofit. It was about gender equity and Title IX and nice. Providing equal opportunities for sports and physical activity for women and girls. And I was invited to speak at UC Santa Barbara as part of a conference that they have there every year. And who should come in to sit in on my presentation, but the Title IX coordinator for UCSB. So the person who is the expert on Title IX to the degree that, you know, she takes complaints and escalates them and is the person who knows everything about Title IX. And I was freaked out to see her there. But, you know, right in the very beginning of the presentation, I actually acknowledged her, and I said, hey, I just want to point out, you know, that this person is in the room, and I said, and I looked at her and I said, I hope you'll feel free to jump in. If you want to add to anything that I'm saying, or if you feel like I'm leaving something out, please jump in. Because I really wanted her to know that I appreciated that she was there and appreciated her expertise, and also really point out to the people in the room, this is the person on your campus who you should go to and speak to. And so, but that's because I'm not hung up on being the smartest person in the room or the person who knows everything. I am fully okay with giving referrals and references and passing on information about other experts. That's what people want you to be real. They want you to be human. They don't want you to pretend you know things when you don't, right?
It's so obvious too, you know, and I think that is part of that, you know, trying to be the perfectionist, and you talk about that a lot in there. And yeah, I come from that Virgo side of like everything has to be perfect. What if, you know, and it is really good. You say about it's okay to let go, and actually it feels damn freeing. You know, it's a good thing. You know, let it flow. But one thing too is some of that perfectionist part does hold hands with fear. And you talk about, you give people these self-reflections, you know, ask this question of yourself throughout the book, which I love because you know, people will read through a book and it's fun. You make a lot of good analogies, you know, from drag queens to, you know, tattoo artists, and you know, it's fun. But you do need that reminder of like stop and think. I've just given you a lesson. Sit back and think. But a lot of what I picked up was having this positive mindset and the self-confidence that like the positivity is your biggest ally in this.
Yes. That it's interesting that you say that. I really just poured myself, my own personality and who I am and what I believe, that's what this book is, because I can't do anything other than that. This is who I am. And I am an incredibly optimistic person. I was just born this way. I can't help it. But I feel that, well, it's not what I feel. I mean, there's research. There's research out there about, you know, there's a ton of research about positive thinking. And you know, if you think about all the things that are going to go wrong in your presentation, it's not necessarily wrong to, again, anticipate what are the things that you specifically fear. And this is an exercise that I have people do when they come to my retreat. And, you know, I ask them, okay, what is the one thing that you worry about the most? What's the one thing that could go wrong? You're going to forget what you were going to say, or you're going to be boring, or this or that, or the other thing. And I actually have a couple of exercises about this. But one is making a what if kind of a sheet. Okay, what if this happens? What will I do? If that happens, how will I handle it? So that you've already sort of thought it through. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to completely leave your consciousness forever. But if you can sort of concern you and worry you in advance, then you can, again, part of preparation, you can feel a little bit more ready and prepared for anything that might go wrong, because things will go wrong, and they always do. So I'm an optimist, and I'm positive, but I've been doing this long enough, 25-plus years, that I know that things are going to go wrong, and it doesn't matter how experienced you are and how long you've been doing this, you're going to do something stupid. Always. So having that positive attitude of the positive attitude is really more like, I can handle anything that happens. And here's how I'm going to handle it. I'm going to make some plans and prepare. And then anything else that I haven't thought of, I just have to roll with the punches. But you're going to do stupid things. I do it all the time in my presentations. I'm an expert at doing stupid things.
But I mean, it's there's just so many things that you're right. Something is always going to go wrong, and it really does. I mean, from easels falling apart just because you kind of touched it, to the
sock monkeys falling down and having her butt in the air. That looks like a big smile.
And then to right down to the room that was supposed to have lighting that doesn't, or the drapes are open and half the room is blinded by the sun, and if any kind of equipment, like if you bring in projectors and stuff, half the time they don't work. They especially don't work if you rely on someone else to do it for you. There's all that. Sometimes, it's like you have to really look at yourself in the mirror. Just make sure you have both your shoes on.
I know.
Just.
Oh, exactly.
Traveling, we actually turn it, because a lot of the places we travel to still do this are these smaller towns. And so we ditched the whole idea of power presentations. We have our basic, this is what we're going to share with you, but we change what we're saying according to the community. And that's something you talk about. It's like know your audience and, research. And, it's changed. Everything we were doing was these seminars changed our business, actually, and understanding these chronic needs of tourism education and hospitality education was, it's a big deal in our country that has to be addressed. And we didn't realize on this until we really started to talk to everyone, and these town hall meetings happened. But we learned, just have a basic easel and make sure you know how to handwrite still, because it was actually more about this communication than being fancy.
Right.
And, Nancy draws funny things anyway. So but that's the thing is have that. You talk about that in your book about two speakers that you went to one event, and the one lady, her handwriting wasn't so great, but she was more powerful because she had connectivity than the person that walked in all slick with all the the fancy presentation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that is a great example of somebody that I really connected with. I think a lot of my favorite speakers over the course of my life are people who feel more real to me, and who feel like, and this is an overused word, and I haven't really come up with a great word to replace it, but people who feel like they're being really authentic. And another cliche is speaking from the heart. I mean, I wish we could come up with new things for this, and I'm working on it. But really, people who seem to really enjoy being there with you, doing what they do, and it doesn't feel fake, and it doesn't feel contrived. And there, I see I was speaking of keynote speakers earlier. I am in the speaking world, and I'm a member of the National Speakers Association. So I go to these conventions, and I see people speaking, and it's my job to watch people speak. And I do feel that not everybody fits my model of what I like as a speaker. This is what I teach, and not everybody agrees with me, and that's fine. I'll go to an event, and it'll be kind of split down the middle. About half of the speakers are those really polished, rehearsed speakers who there isn't a word out of place, and every step on the stage has been rehearsed, and they do these sort of contrived things with their voices. I mean, I watch those speakers and I cringe, and yet they'll get, a standing ovation. And then there are the others, the other half of the speakers who get on stage are just so real, and you just feel like they're talking to you personally and having a conversation with you personally, and they will also get a standing ovation. So I'm not saying my way is the right way for everybody, but for the people I work with, the real the people, not that they're not more real than keynote speakers, but they're the people who have to speak for their job, right? So they get paid to be an architect, but they have to go speak at a conference. I'm working with an architect right now who's speaking on a panel next week. I just finished working with a guy who brokers hotels. He is a broker for hotels, and he had to speak on a panel. These are not people who, number one, are professional speakers, and number two, they're not even people who have a ton of time to practice speaking. So the way I see it, if you're a person who has to speak for your job, or you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to grow your business through speaking, you don't have the time anyway to have these really rehearsed, perfect gestures and facial expressions. You have to get up on stage and just be real and just speak from the heart and use some basic guidelines to structure your presentation and know how you're going to start and how you're going to end and how you're going to engage and those kinds of things. But you don't have the time or the energy or the desire to have one of those super polished canned speeches anyway.
Right. You know, Lisa and I used to work for this company when we first came back to this country, and we worked for the same company but in different stores. And we had to go to, we used to call them the Tuesday RAH Meetings. I know. It was like everybody was like, oh, no, not one of those. And we'd have to, I think it was once a month, we'd have to drive like 4 hours to go to some meeting in a big hall, and the management or the owners of the company would get these speakers in, and 9 times out of 10, they would come from the back of the auditorium and run down the aisle with the mic, and everybody would go, oh, no, not one of those.
Yeah.
And those were those like motivational speakers, like get up there and sell, and this is how you do it, and crack a few.
Run on the stage. Remember the run on the stage?
We're like, I'm never doing that. And my boss would say, Nancy, you have to do that. I'm like, I'm not running.
No, we'll get black eyes.
I'm not running.
Nobody needs to see that.
That's not happening. Never.
No, but give us some champagne.
And they're like,
fine.
what if we fire you? Like, well, then you fire me. I'm not running.
Well, there's also, okay, so there's that. And then there's the people that, you know, and we deal with this on the radio shows, that are incredibly smart scientifically, and you cover this really well in your book, because there are people that deal with topics that, suddenly now, you know, a biologist needs to go and speak to people that have no clue about biology, and you hear the word biology or history or something, and it's like, oh, no. And it's kind of a dry topic maybe. Like for me, I'll be fascinated, but, you know, there's the huge population who will not be and have to speak on it. And even on radio shows, there's some people that have the most important knowledge, and we can't put them on the show because it's boring. You know what I mean? And there's topics that are sensitive. There's topics that are important, and how do we get, like, these people need to get it out, that information out there,
right.
And it has to be fun in some way. Even if it's sensitive, you have to connect. It's not always fun, I suppose, but connect and get to someone's heart.
Right.
You know.
Well, honestly, I think there's humor in just about everything. When I was sort of getting my public speaking initial training, which was in high school classrooms, talking about domestic violence, I had to bring humor into that. My gosh, you don't want to go in and talk to a classroom of 30, 15 or 16-year-olds and be this heavy, you know, here's why domestic violence is bad, and here's why you need to learn about healthy relationships. God, nobody wants to hear that. So I learned very early on that there's always a way to bring humor into just about any topic. And I do believe there's no such thing as a dry topic. It is a chapter in my book. I have a lot of clients who are engineers, finance people. I went up and spoke. I did a training for Microsoft in September, and they're all computer people. You know, they sit behind their computer all day long. And I'm not saying they're not necessarily people, but a lot of engineers and finance people and scientists are not people. They really like sort of, you know, staying behind the computer and doing their research and making things happen behind the scenes, but they're not necessarily really excited about getting in front of an audience. And I just remind, they'll come to me and they'll say, oh, my topic is so boring. I have to talk about whatever it is, you know, Lyme disease or something. Or I had a doctor one time who had to talk about the Affordable Care Act when it was just coming out. And he's like, oh, who wants to hear this? You know?
Ooh, lots of people.
And, Yeah, and he just thought it was getting boring. And the way I see it is the topic itself may be heavy, it may be complex, it may be something that not everybody understands, but the only things that makes it dry is you. And again, there are so many ways that you can make your topic accessible to your audience. There's so many ways that you can make your content approachable and interesting and intriguing and even funny to your audience. And there's just no excuse. And it's not, the content is not the problem. If your audience gets bored, it's because you're the problem. That's just the way it is. We are responsible for engaging our audiences and making sure they walk away with that knowledge, information, action taking, motivation, whatever it is what result we're trying to get. We have to, it's our job.
And ditch those fancy words.
Very tongue-tied, but yeah.
Ditch the fancy words that nobody knows. Like, you don't try to prove. You make quite a few points of that throughout the book, actually, and it's like, people. It's like, excuse me, let me get on Google now during your presentation to find out what the hell you're saying. It's like, oh, thank you for belittling us. If we don't know that fancy word that you had to Google to figure out. You know what I mean?
Right. And so many people just do it so they can sound smart and impressive. And I don't even mean that in a mean way, like people are intentionally trying to talk down to their audiences. It's not that they want their audience to feel stupid. They just want themselves to feel and look smart. Right. But it has the effect of making your audience feel stupid. And I think I actually don't remember if I talk about this in the book or not, but adults, we have very sensitive egos. When we were kids, we didn't care, like, you fall down, you get up, you keep going. It's no big deal. And as an adult, our egos are so sensitive. We can't handle any kind of criticism or any, we can't look stupid. We can't look foolish. And so when you're standing up on the stage and you're using all these acronyms that people don't understand and this jargon that people don't understand, I guarantee you that nobody in your audience is going to raise their hand and say, I don't understand that acronym, because they're afraid of looking foolish. They're afraid that everyone around them gets it and they don't want to say anything, and you've lost them. Now, even if one person raises their hand and is brave enough to say, I don't understand your acronym, I do this all the time, by the way, because nothing embarrasses me, and I don't care if I look like a fool. If one person raises their hand, I'm pretty sure there are another 10 people in there who have the same question. So, again, it's your job to start right from the beginning. And if you have an acronym, which acronyms are great, acronyms, we need them, right? We don't always want to say some long thing like Affordable Care Act. So you just explain what the acronym means the first time you use it and then move on, right? Or if there's some jargony sort of term that people might not understand, explain it the first time you use it. Don't ask the audience, do you understand this? Do you know what this means? Because everyone's going to go, uh-huh. They're going to nod their heads because they don't want to look stupid. It's just human nature.
No, it's true. I do have to ask you, before we get to your champagne toast, what led you to become a public speaker and become a coach and then write your book? Again, it's such a fun book to read, and it really, you connect with your reader, and I think that's something, again, you're about connectivity, and I think it's, when you pick up a book, you do want, it feels like you're just sitting there telling me, hey, try this out. You need to do this. So there's something for everyone, no matter what you're speaking about, to gain something from this. So everyone's got to get your book. But what led you to take this on as a profession?
Well, I have a background in theater, so I started out when I was a kid and a teenager thinking I wanted to be an actor. Mm-hmm. So I did always like performing. I've always liked performing, singing, dancing, all that kind of stuff. I was on the speech team in high school, so I've always liked speaking, and I like being on stage, and it is one way that I can sort of challenge my shyness because I'm not good. I feel like I'm not good. Probably people don't think that because I'm good faking it. But I'm not good with crowds and strangers and whatever. But I am good getting on stage when I can sort of give a performance. So that was always my thing. And then I realized I sucked as an actor, and that was never going to be my career. And so I decided to go to grad school for education because alongside being an actor, I always thought that it would be really great to teach and work with kids. And I've just always liked working with kids. So I thought, well, instead of being an actor, maybe I'll teach kids to act. I'll be like an acting teacher. And, of course, that's stupid. If you're a terrible actor, you don't really want to try to be an acting teacher. But I ended up going to grad school for education. And that sort of all happened at the same time that I was getting into nonprofit work. So through nonprofits, I ended up doing a lot of work with kids. But I was in my nonprofit job, my first big nonprofit job, I was forced to go out and give presentations in high schools. And so this was not my choice to go and do public speaking because, like many people, I was afraid, and my audience was going to be high school students, and I was petrified
they're hard.
of how high school students were going to, how they were going to take me. And so this was the domestic violence job, and I worked there for 6 years and actually created a teen dating violence program so that I could actually go out full time and do speaking, because after a year of doing it, I realized how critical it was and how important it was, and that it needed to be a full-time position and not just something I did around my other work. So I created a speaking career for myself within nonprofits, and I ended up doing a lot of group facilitating and community outreach. And then I started my own nonprofit, so I ended up doing a lot of speaking for that. And then I started working at a nonprofit where I was the training director. So I just ended up creating a career for myself that involved a lot of speaking. And then I got laid off 3 times in 4 years from nonprofits.
Yeah, that happens in nonprofits a lot.
Yeah. And I decided, okay, that's not going to work for me anymore. I really need to at least, being an entrepreneur isn't job security, but at least I'm not relying on somebody writing a grant, for my job that then runs out in 2 years and they have to let me go. And so then again, the speaking thing came about because I was in a self-employment training program here in Santa Barbara. And one of my classmates heard me speak because I was still running my own nonprofit at the time. She heard me speak, and she came to me and she said, can you help me do what you do? Like, not how I want to learn how to do public speaking, but I want to learn how to get on stage, be comfortable, be natural, have fun, like what you do. And I thought, wow, I can teach people how to do. This is actually something I know how to do, and I can teach it. Because, I had this background as a performer. I had an education degree. I had been doing speaking at that time for maybe 15 years, and I have a particular style, and she didn't want to know how to just get up and put her hands in the right place. She wanted to know how to be comfortable, relaxed, natural, authentic, and that was the light bulb that went on over my head about 12 years ago.
Nice. Well, congratulations on it, too, because
Thank
you're
you.
good at it. But what is your toast? And being natural is
my
key.
Toast.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, my champagne toast cheers to my accountability partners, Amy, Tammy, and Gail. These are the people who keep me on track and make sure that I do what I say I'm going to do in my business, and all of the power women in the National Speakers Association, because these women they have the kind of speaking and training and coaching businesses that I strive to have, and they kick me in the butt, and they force me all the time to elevate my mindset and my business.
Right on. I like that. And right now, women need to be out in the forefront doing all kinds of presentations, no matter what industry you're in. It is one of our tools that we can utilize to move forward as just as a gender in these times. I mean, it's time, and politically use it. There's a revolution happening, and
women need to speak up, speak out, run for office, get on stages.
Absolutely.
Say what needs to be said. Yes, I am all about that.
I was going to say, before you go, too, one of the things as I started reading your book, I thought, because a lot of times you'll think, oh, you need to do it because suddenly you're speaking in front of a school, or you're speaking, your boss says you need to go speak at this. I don't want to do it, or something. You're in that position. But I also thought that it's so important now. There's so many issues going on that, it gets political. It could be something in your community that you do need to go to a town hall and stand up and say, hey, I want the water tested, or whatever it is, right?
And that's not a bad idea.
No, and by the way, everybody should check that out. Just saying. But if you want to go up against the opposition of whatever you're trying to fix, you've got to be good, because that other side, they've been doing it for years. That is what, and I don't care what government position, I don't care if it's a PTA, anybody in those roles, they've been in that chair for a long time. And if you want to make a change, you've got to present your case, and you might as well do it really effectively and get that connection. And I think that's one of the most important tools of your book, is empowering people to take a stand, because we can get upset, we can rant and rave, we can sign petitions, but if you're going to really go make a change and speak to others, do it so that it actually gets across to people and be successful. So thank you for that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a true pleasure.
Likewise. You two ladies are so much fun. I am really excited that you invited me. And by the way,
I'm really glad.
It's National Soup Day, and I was already planning on making soup for the Super Bowl.
Oh, my gosh. I love that. I didn't even say, I'm like, that is classic. That is classic. I like that. Now, are you going to put,
so nerdy.
little dumplings in it? No, just saying, like little balls in there or something. Yeah,
little
meatball soup. You got to have little floaters in there. But everyone, again, the book is by Lisa Braithwaite, and it's called Presenting for Humans: Insights for Speakers on Ditching Perfection and Creating Connection. Great title. Again, you can go to Coach Lisa B, and that's B as the letter itself, and you can go to Amazon or just go to presentingforhumans.com. Thanks so much for joining us. You enjoy the rest of your Super Bowl. Take care.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.